Hey guys, welcome back. This is Robert and Jason with Mr. Texas Real Estate. This is the Texas Real Estate Mastermind or Texas Real Estate Radio. I don't know what our show is called.
Whatever we're calling it these days.
Thanks for watching. Just subscribe, hit the button, all that good stuff. So Jason has an analogy that he has used for since I've known him. So Jason, I'm going to let you go ahead and let's make sure the camera is on him so we get the whole thing.
So the real estate industry is like a professional football game, and there are multiple participants in that game. There's the fans, and let's say 70, 80, 90,000 of those folks. There's the coaching staff.
Sure. Yep.
There's the guys on the field.
Starters.
There's the starters. There's a reserve sitting on the on the bench getting ready to go.
Trying to get in. Yep.
And then there are the cheerleaders.
Yep, cheerleaders. Yep.
And so whenever I talk to somebody, I try to figure out, where are they in that group? Who are they?
Where's their seat in the stadium?
Where are their seats?
Yep.
And most people are in the stands. They're in the stands of the stadium. They're watching the game. They're giving their advice.
It's fine. I mean, they're paying us $97 a ticket, right?
Yeah, that's fine. In fact,
that's fine.
Most of the people that go to real estate classes, they never really graduate to a player, right? They're just kind of in the stadium.
Yep.
I'm just watching and learning, and it's whenever you've got someone doing the analysis, one of my favorite guys to watch is during basketball. So I will watch Charles Barkley and Shaq just go after each other. I could literally watch that all day long, right?
Excellent, yeah.
But when they start talking about basketball, I obviously, Hall of Fame, multiple championships, all that stuff, right? Yep. So when you listen to those guys, they got real experience. But the other fans sitting up there in the stadium, I mean,
in the cheap seats.
Maybe they played high school ball or whatever. And then there's the coaching staff, right? And those are the guys that are helping the players, and then there's the players that are actually on the field.
For sure.
And the players on the field, you're watching and you're seeing them do some amazing things. Whenever I get up close and personal at a professional sporting event, I'm always blown away by how big those guys are, but how fast they move for the size they are. And in any case, so those guys are actually on the field.
And you know what they do, the guys on the field? They block out the people in the stands.
Oh, they don't hear any of that.
They don't hear any of it. Yep.
It's all nonsense, right?
Just a little hum of noise.
Yeah, it's all kind of nonsense out there. And then you've got the guys that are the reserves that are sitting on the bench.
Ready to go.
And most investors never even get to the bench.
That's right.
They're just kind of, or they're sitting on the bench and they're just not, when it's time to play, they're not ready to play.
Yeah, they're actually cheerleaders.
Yeah, they're really just cheerleaders.
We got a bunch of cheerleaders, and we thank you for your support. We really do.
Yeah.
We really do appreciate you guys that will direct message us or support us or watch our stuff, give us thumbs up, all that stuff. We appreciate it greatly.
Yeah. So then there's the cheerleaders. And so at some point, the folks that are successful, something will happen in the game.
Sure.
And they grab that guy who's the second string guy. And now he starts to get reps on the field, right? He's getting some play time. So all of a sudden, he's prepared.
Yeah.
He's playing. Oh, maybe we bring this guy in more often. Or he gets traded to another team and he actually gets to start, right?
Or he fails.
Falls right in his face.
Oh, no good.
Or you've got a starter that absolutely just fails. Throws some couple interceptions.
Yep. Eli Manning's going to Hall of Fame, but got a gazillion interceptions. Right? So you look at a guy like that and you're like, oh my, if all you ever watched was his highlight reel of interceptions, right,
you would think he's the worst football player.
Yeah,
absolutely terrible, right?
Sure.
Jordan has missed more shots than most people have taken.
Exactly. Every baseball player, right?
Yeah.
Has basically more at bats than hits, right? It's just they're striking out or walking a lot more than they get hits, right?
Well, it's
typically 75% of the time they're not getting it.
Oh yeah. Well, it was fascinating to me when you go to baseball. Somebody had told me one time, they said the difference between the Mendoza line, which for those of you who aren't baseball people, that's the rating, if you will, between going down to the minor leagues and continuing to play professional baseball.
Yep.
The difference between the Mendoza line and the Hall of Fame, meaning the pinnacle of your career, is 6 hits a month.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, these guys are playing almost every single day during the summer, right? At least 2 or 3 days in a row, sometimes 4 days in a row. So that's the difference. It's not a lot. It's 6 hits a month. That's all it is. So it's yeah, go ahead.
Right. So it's always interesting when the people who, want to be entrepreneurs and want to be investors, right, are not, they'll listen to the motivational videos, but they're not understanding the words that are being said.
No.
Right? It's, hey, don't quit. You can fail, but don't quit.
Right.
Well, other podcasts we did, we talked about a refi crisis. There are going to be investors that are failing.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? There are going to be companies that are dropping off. We already see some of them, right?
Yeah.
And so, hey, man, guess what? You are protected. There are laws that protect you. And certainly here in the state of Texas, my homestead is protected. There's really, I guess, only the federal government and my mortgage company that could come get it for me, right? So I'm protected, and I should use those protections. So we had someone write one of our vendors.
Yeah, so we have a friend of ours who is filing bankruptcy.
Yes.
And it's now in the public. We kind of knew it was coming, but in any case, he's having to file bankruptcy. And somebody sent our vendor, who also happens to be an attorney of ours, an anonymous letter.
An anonymous letter. It's beautiful.
Which is, I think, is so funny. And it said, I can't believe you sponsor
Mr.
Texas Real Estate because this guy that works for him is filing for bankruptcy.
Right.
And my first thought was, well, he doesn't work for us.
Right. He doesn't work for us.
I said, but I actually tried to hire him when his business failed.
Yes. We took a meeting.
I took a meeting. I was like, come work for us. He would be great. Yep. His business failed, but that doesn't mean he's not good.
Right.
It just fell up. Sometimes businesses, actually, most businesses fail.
All businesses fail.
Yeah, on a long enough timeline, they all fail.
That's right.
Yes. They absolutely all fail. So this whole idea that, oh, well, he's filing for bankruptcy and he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
I was like, that's not how that works. Dude.
Right.
Not how that works at all.
So it's always funny when the guys who are like, all about the motivational videos and I'm going to crush it and blah, 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 like, oh man, I can't believe you. Have you heard the story? Have you heard this one? I'm like, yeah, you know what's going to happen now? He's going to be 10 times better than you'll ever be.
Oh yeah.
Because he went through the adversary, right? He went through this part of his life that put him in a position where he's going to learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
Because you learn 100 times more from your mistakes than you do your successes.
Yeah.
And so what happened to all those one-liners and all those Facebook posts you put up there, right? About don't quit and do all this other stuff. And now it's like, oh no, there's something really happening in the marketplace. Look, I don't want to tell your story, but you're on a back channel and someone in the back channel wrote, hey, I need a good bankruptcy attorney.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. Yeah, for sure. Yep. You probably got first position notes that are going to calling the note due, and you've got to protect yourself.
Yeah, I have always said that if there is a big real estate crash and you own a bunch of debt, I would tell you right now, file BK, sue all the lenders. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I say that. I'm like, because what it does is it moves that foreclosure date way out in the future.
Yeah.
So you could play this game for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And by then, values have come back. You're able to refinance it. I mean,
and renegotiate.
Things, right? And people are like, oh my God, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, well, yeah, you will. Well, actually, you won't, and you will lose in the long run. This is how Trump actually saved a lot of his businesses. File BK, casinos, sue everybody, right? And you're not suing them maliciously. What you're trying to do is just, it's what I call staying the execution.
Yeah.
You're trying to stay off a death row here. And that's the way to do it.
This is not the best business practice. No one gets in the business to do this, but it's a tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's someone basically bad-mouthing us.
Yeah.
Right? So let me just address that person. Hey, douchebag, the guy doesn't work for me. And then basically just, slamming this guy because he took the protections that were afforded to him by the law.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Well, and here's the other thing. I don't know a single tycoon that didn't file bankruptcy.
Of course not. Yes.
I mean, Elon Musk has famously said if that last SpaceX rocket didn't go up,
he's done.
Everything would have collapsed.
Right. And now he's got a $320 billion valuation.
Yeah. Now he's richest guy on the planet, right? So, T. Boone Pickens, classic example.
For sure.
Completely lost everything 3 times. Came back. Died a gazillionaire. So this whole idea that, bankruptcy and they're like some evil people because they quote left people out to dry. I'm like, man, that's business. That's business.
So again, I'll use that analogy, right? It's the unfortunate thing is that our world, and most of the people, they're in high school.
I was going to say they're children.
They're just children, high school, right? It's like, oh my God, right? So, we had a conversation with one of our partners, and he's like, well, we don't want to give any bad news. That will be really bad for you guys. I'm like, no. I'll just get right on this podcast and explain exactly what happened and why you should do it, keep going on forward and doing it, or don't ever do it again. It's a lesson learned. Now I've never declared BK, you've never declared BK. We're good. But the lessons that you learn are, amazing.
Yeah.
So I get it. Businesses fail. Like, you hear someone went under. It wasn't your business, but the mattress company went under. Guess what? Someone lost money. Mm-hmm. Someone didn't get the last paycheck. Someone didn't get, their pension paid. Yes, people are losing. So, but that letter was just stupid and childish. And I'm going to tell you that in the next 3 years, you're going to see people in the real estate market, mostly in the commercial market, seeking protection under the law.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And then you're going to look back 10 years from now, and those guys are going to be 10 times bigger.
They'd be absolutely fair.
Oh, my God. Right. This guy filed bankruptcy. Right. And it's like, hey, man, still got the Lambo.
Right. March 2020, right? The entire oil industry collapses.
Yes.
Right? Oh, my God, it's all over.
Yeah.
Everything's done. Get your money out. We're done. We're doing fine today.
Yeah. I don't, it is fascinating to watch. And as if investors are owed something. Like if you go in, I had a really sharp multifamily guy that shared something with me years and years ago. And he said, look, if you go in and this is all the information you know, and you made the best decision based off that information and you still lost, you can't kill you can't, beat yourself up over it. I mean, it's like, hey, based off the information, this is what we got, right? Yep. And this is where we're at. And folks who lack that emotional maturity throw a fit, scream and yell, all that stuff. It's like, okay, well, how does that fix this, right? Nothing nefarious is going on here. Right. It's just, hey, market change, can't refinance property. I know a lot of multifamily operators right now. And, I'll give kudos to Robert Martinez because he's posting everything public right now where he's saying, look, we're having massive problems here.
Yeah.
My cost of capital doubled. Taxes and insurance are
it doubled with a stop.
Yeah, with his cap rate.
It would have been it'll be triple in a couple months.
Yeah, and he said, look, this is what we did. The property's doing much better than when we bought it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's really expensive for us to operate it. So we stopped paying the mortgage, we're paying taxes and insurance, and we've hired a third-party firm to negotiate with the lender. In fact, they invited the lender. It was really great. It was like we invited the lender down to take a look at the asset. They liked it. It looks even better than when we bought it. So they're going to work something out. Mm-hmm. Now, he's probably one of the best multifamily operators today. He's really, really
very good operator, you bet.
And so it's like, that's how you deal with that maturely. It's like, we have a problem here. This is how we're addressing it. Hey, I'm open to any suggestions. This is like what I say in my GP meetings, right? Hey guys, this is the problem. I'm open to any suggestions.
Sure.
We had a project that we've already shared. We've shared this publicly, but AC's jumped in price 50%. We ended up having to put windows in because there was asbestos in the window framing, right? So it's like, well, there's another $250,000. And it's
insurance went up on all the roofing companies.
Yeah, insurance has gone up. The cost of that tar and the roofing material because oil is up.
Yep.
It's like, what do you, well, Jason, I'm mad because.
How did this happen?
How does this happen? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I didn't sit there and study asphalt shingle economics.
Projected petroleum asphalt projects.
Yeah, on a $3.5 million deal.
Yeah.
Now everyone will whine and complain about that. I'm like, oh, by the way, it's now worth almost $5 million, right? So it's like, come on, we're going to double our money in a couple of years. So it's stuff like that where you just look at people and you're like, I have no idea, dude. I'm not an expert on asphalt shingle manufacturing.
Right.
No one could have known that there was asbestos in the windows. Like, come on, dude.
We talked about it on Sunday at our 2-day event. Starting in 2017 to today, no one could have projected the last 6 years in this market.
No.
Right? Starts with
Hurricane Harvey, the worst storm in the history of the world, right?
Prices are depressed for at least 18, if not 24 months.
Yeah. Almost $250,000 on one home in Harvey.
2019, things are getting better. COVID.
Yes.
COVID goes out 2 years. Oh my God, this is horrible. That world is collapsing. We get out of it. Massive inflation, massive price increases, massive inflation in the interest rates. So now here we are 2 years later after that, we can't get commercial refis.
Yep.
Got a problem. So if anyone could have told you any of that in the last 6 years, if someone sat you down in 2016 and said, Jason, let me tell you what's going to happen.
Let me tell you the mess that's about to happen.
It's going to happen in the next 6 years. You'd be like, oh my God, really? And 99% of the people would have never done anything in real estate.
Right.
Meanwhile, all our properties are up.
Meanwhile, since 2017,
yeah,
they've doubled in value.
Doubled in value in 6 years.
Doubled in value.
Right.
So when you put that again, and here's the reality. Why does it double in value? Because the demand for the product, the demand for the house, the demand for the multifamily. But the reality is everybody wants to live here, despite all this crazy stuff, the floods and, mosquitoes that are carried away and all that other nonsense. Yeah. But the reality is so we actually have one guy in the class ask, well, Jason, you couldn't have predicted any of that. I'm like, actually you can, because I'm going to predict all that stuff is going to happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
There's going to be another storm. There's going to be some other pandemic. There's going to be some recession and job losses, and oil's going to crash. It's all going to happen again.
Right.
Why is it going to happen again? Because it's all happened before.
Right. What do you, that's the famous Jim Rohn, right? So what do you think next year is going to be like?
Yeah. So Jim Rohn is like in this executive boardroom of a really powerful oil and gas company. And they brought Jim in, and I said, Jim, pretty sharp guy. What do you think is going to happen next year? And what does Jim say?
Pretty much the same thing that happened this year. There'll be ups and there'll be downs.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Well, wait a minute. We're paying you a lot of money." And he's like, "Yeah, guys, this is life on Earth.
Right. Exactly.
This is how this works."
Yep.
And then of course he would say it's things like, "Hey, look, you can't have a sunrise without a sunset."
Yep.
And vice versa. You can't have winter without spring. Summer. Oh, you want 4 seasons of summer? Sorry, that's not how this works.
So, regardless of all the things that happen, equity has doubled in 6 years and gone up about 50% in the last 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right? Since 2019, it's at least 50%.
So we're super happy with all the properties that we bought, right? Now, we having troubles refining them? Yep. Does that mean we're going to have to do some different things? Yep. Right? So, but this is what the players on the field do.
Right.
This is what we do.
Hey, Rob, we're running a play, and this defense is not doing exactly what they should.
Right.
They're sacking the quarterback.
They're getting us. Yeah.
They're picking off those wide receivers.
Yep.
So, they're not doing what right. You gotta modify your strategy a little bit here, guys.
Yep. While most people will just sit in the stands and complain.
Yeah, they'll sit in the stands, or they'll get out in the field. They'll take one hit and go, "Nah, I'm done.
That's not for me.
That's not for me. I'm out." But I'm going to sit there in the stands and talk bad about everybody that's on there. Yeah. Like, "Oh, you took one hit. Get out of here."
With an anonymous letter.
Yep. Really, my God, I read that and I immediately thought, like, is this person in high school?
I would have been better if they cut the letters out of the newspaper.
Oh, like a ransom note?
Like a ransom note? That would have
been pretty funny.
Been good.
But, it was kind of funny. I was dating this gal, and I don't know how this topic conversation came up. And I said, well, what happens if I lose everything? Because statistically, you will file for bankruptcy and kind of lose everything at some point in your career.
Right. Most entrepreneurs that are, lifelong entrepreneurs are going to file for BK 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. We know this.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
So she says, well, here's what I know. You probably know how to build it faster the second time around. I'm like, And she said, and if worst case scenario, you can just go back to your old career where you're doing well anyway. I'm like, that's true. She said, but more than likely, you're just going to turn it all around in a year or two anyway. So I don't really worry about it. I'm like, it's interesting.
Got it. And there's, that's why there's only 11% of the population in this country that even want to think about being an entrepreneur.
Right.
90% of the people don't want to go out there and put themselves on the field.
Yeah.
So we get it. We totally get it. So
it's shaming someone for filing bankruptcy is like shaming somebody for filing a extension on their taxes.
Right.
Like it's just, you don't.
Oh, we've gotten shamed for that though.
We have gotten shamed for that. Right. Yeah. We're getting
K1's not ready. We get it.
We got it. Our investors we have a couple that are just absolute pain right now. But, and it's like, hey man, I don't know what to tell you. It's completely out of my span of control. I got no control over this. So, but it's the reality is that this is part of doing business.
Yep.
It's like getting sued. Oh, you're a bad guy because you're in a lawsuit. Well, no, we're having a business disagreement here.
Yep.
And the court, and we don't even go to court anymore. Everything's mediated, right? Everything goes to mediation. So at the end of the day, which is funny. So we've been having a lot of conversations with our attorneys and accountants and all that stuff. And we're like, okay, well, what's the worst case scenario? Like everything just ends up in mediation.
Right.
Like it's just a mediation. And the way you guys operate your business, it's pretty clear what happens next. So if you guys are following our emails, I sent an email out last week. I don't know, Saturday, Sunday. I guess it's last Saturday, Sunday. And it was about what happens when deals go bad.
Yep.
And I'm about to write the next email. It's going to go out, I don't know, probably go out sometime this week, if not next. And it's what happens when syndications go bad and funds go bad. And I think there's this common misconception that investors get paid first. And that's not how that works. They get paid.
Let's not scare them.
Oh, I know. Yeah. But I'm gonna write that email because you guys are gonna see it. It's about to play out. Do y'all remember when I did the inflation show? I did 2 shows on inflation, and everyone's like, "Wow, that was really interesting." What happened 6 months later? Inflation went crazy, right? And so this is the same thing. I'm like, "Well, Jason, why are you talking about bankruptcy and funds failing and syndications and all that?" I'm like, because you're about to see it in mass. And that's actually what the letter said. It's like, you're about to see this in mass. So,
right. All these commercial REITs, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Big name companies. Look, Blackstone is stopping to buy single families and are selling now.
Yes.
That's huge.
Well, how many of those companies, and I cannot remember if it's BlackRock or not, but one of them has a huge commercial REIT and they just stopped paying the mortgages.
Yeah.
So someone running around goes, "You're a bad guy because you did X, Y, and Z." I'm like, dude, the biggest company in the world just did that.
Yep.
Like, do you guys remember, I think people forget this, during COVID, when Trump got up there and said, "Don't pay your mortgage," Apple and Nike came out and said, "We're not paying our commercial rent."
Yep.
What are you going to do? Courts are closed. You're going to sue Apple?
Right.
The largest it's got the largest cash reserves in the world. You're going to sue Apple? It's not like they couldn't afford it. They're like, "Nah, we're good. We don't know what's going to happen with COVID. We don't want to pay our office rent, so we're good." And now, I don't know how all that ended up working out, but you saw that
better than us. We wound up buying 20 tons of air conditioning.
Yeah, we bought a bunch of air conditioners. Yeah, but we paid all our investors and we paid our rent. Like, how interesting is that, right? So yeah, I read that letter. Like you said, it was written kind of like a ransom letter. I read this letter, and it wasn't even a letter. It was like 3 sentences. Oh. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, man, you really don't understand the world. Yeah. And some of the questions I'm getting from investors, I'm like, yeah, you really don't know what happens next. Right. What happens when a deal goes bad?
Yep.
This is why I've always said for 5 or 6 years now, when you get a private placement memorandum for a fund or syndication, it is 100 pages long. And the first 99 pages is how you're going to lose money.
Yep.
And the last page is how you're going to make money. So when you start going through the PPMs, it basically says, oh yeah, you can lose it this way, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. It's all disclosed in there. And it's like, okay, what happens next? Yep. And that's a lot of the discussions I think investors need to start having right now with each other.
With their GPs and talking to folks about it. We're going to do some meetings coming up here. Like I said, all our stuff has equity.
And we got equity and everything.
We're good. Some of it's, not as cash flowing as much as others. Some of it still needs some construction, but we're on track for all that. What do we say? We have 7. So we have one that's a little under
funds and syndications. And that's because it's a brand new one.
It's brand new. So one that's under, 3 performing at target.
So this at target means what was in the pro forma.
Yeah. We said 12 to 14%. It's hitting 12 to 14%.
It's hitting right along. Now, mind you, our funds are to run 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's a bigger issue, but yeah.
We're like in year 3, and they're already tracking along where they should.
Yep.
So we've got 3 that are tracking right along.
Yep, and then 3 more that are outperforming.
They're way outperforming.
Yep.
I think one was like 20%. It's like at 80. I mean, something crazy like that. So yeah, it's when you sit down and look at the numbers next, because that's the other thing. It's like we're having a lot of conversations about financials right now, and I said, here's the problem. Financials don't tell the story.
Right.
They're like, well, I need to, and we were talking with somebody today about it. I'm like, well, I need to see the cash burn and then what's in reserves. I'm like, yeah, but the problem is it doesn't have the value of the property. He said, you're absolutely right.
Right.
He said, that's the problem with some of the syndications he's in. I'm like, well, look.
Yeah, and all 7 of our entities are about equity.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, they're all equity plays, right? So what's interesting is it's like, okay, what did we predict in the pro forma? Where are we at now? And where are we going to be at in the future? And you look at those three things and go, oh yeah, we're good. We just need a little more liquidity to help with a refinance because they won't let us do a 75% refi.
Not anymore.
They'll let you do a 50.
I'm struggling at getting a 58% LTV.
It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
So this is the stuff that's going out there. And again, we understand there's a lot of FUD out there, fear, unknown, doubt. We understand it. We understand you guys are you're reading the paper, there's news, you're watching YouTube, there's other whispers going out there, there's anonymous letters being sent. So we get all of that. But here's the deal. When do you buy? Right now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If we had more money, we would absolutely be buying more real estate.
Mm-hmm.
We're not afraid of the market because we know this is a 6, 12, or even 18-month little downturn in the refi market, right? It's not a downturn in the equity market. That's the key. You need to understand that the capital, the access to capital to do a refinance on your property has tightened up. Over here, the properties are still gaining value. Rents have gone up. So the property looks great if we can get the refi. And that's the challenge, right? We bought these things so dang cheap, right? That most of our stuff is so low. Like we're looking for 65% LTV loans.
Well, you know what's funny is
what we're doing right now is a 65% LTV.
Yeah. So a lot of our investors keep reaching out and they're like, "Hey, what's going on with the project? What's going on with the project? You know, we're seeing all this stuff in the news because Houston right now is ground zero for apartment defaults and commercial real estate." And so, like, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Look, let me explain what's going on. The multifamily projects that you're seeing that are going into foreclosure right now are going into foreclosure because they were 90% occupied and now they're 40.
Right.
So, boom, gone. Right.
Yeah.
I said, we buy stuff that is vacant." Meaning
0% occupancy.
0% occupancy.
Right. And now they're at 90, except the lender wants me at 100.
Right. So it's like, or we're at 85.
Right. But I have to be at 100 for the refi.
That's right. Which is funny because it's such a small, you know, it's only 20 doors, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the hilarious part is I'm like, look, you guys knew day one when we bought this thing, we were buying a big piece of junk.
Right.
We showed you the pictures. We showed you pictures of the bums living in the apartment. I mean, like, this is a roach motel, right? So there was no surprise there.
Yep.
The surprise is, hey, how long is construction, occupancy permits taking freaking ever? Like, it's all that kind of nonsense. But we bought junk at the beginning. What's happening right now is you're seeing folks that can't manage assets that now are going into default because they literally have lost half their occupancy. We buy them when they're vacant.
Right.
So
we made a bet to get to 90% occupancy with good rents, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these other guys made a bet that interest rates were going to stay at 3.5%.
Right.
We didn't make that bet.
No, that wasn't the bet. In fact, if you go back and look at our pro formas, I want to say the lowest interest rate we ever used was 6.5.
6.5, yeah.
Everything else was actually, we pro formed out at 7 and 8%.
Right.
That
was
was
the big
2
one.
years ago.
Yep.
When it was 2.
Yep. That was a big one. They made the bet that interest rates were going to stay under 4. We made the bet we can get to 90% and get construction done. So we're both kind of losing the bet.
Yeah.
But our loss is a lot easier than their loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Ours is, hey, construction's gone up. You know, although I would also make the argument too, nobody predicted interest rates would double in this short amount of time, which is wild, right? And then add the commercial real estate lending market and what's going on there. Of course, the banks have a big, you know, it's all a banking issue at the end of the day. And so that's been the real challenge. But at the end of the day, I mean, they're performing better than the next guy.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Hopefully you got a little clarity. You probably got a little more questions. We're okay if you go ahead and write your questions down below. We'll make sure we get some answers to you guys. Make sure you check out all our webinars coming up. We've got some live events going on. So look forward to seeing you there. And again, if you've got the resources to get into the market right now, I'd get into the market right now. Take care.